Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum. Shit, I'm even one called Butthole Coin.
What's going on, guys? It's K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. So today is Thursday. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having an alright day, but Bitcoin did just dump 6%. We're down at $7,625 now. We were actually sitting a lot lower this morning. You can see we were down to about $7,355. So listen, I'm going to be completely honest with you. We are right in the middle right now. So by the time you see this video, prices could be absolutely different. So I'm going to try to make this one as quick as possible so I can get it out to you so we can have the most accurate prices and news possible. Now, outside of the fact that we did just break some pretty damn critical support, I also do want to talk about this FUD with the miners, capitulating and all that other stuff, whether or not we should actually be worried about that. Also, the United States in discussion about a potential central bank digital currency, not to say that they're going to do that, but I want to discuss that. Also, the fact that Grayscale is still trying to, get the first step for that Bitcoin ETF by, filing Form 10 with the SEC. So we're going to get into all that, but I think most importantly, we need to talk about what is happening right now, because currently on this 30-minute candle, it does look like we are trying to push lower. So that's what we're going to talk about today. If that sounds good to you, you know what to do. Also, if you are not subscribed to the Crypto Zombie channel, bull market, bear market, green, red, doesn't matter, guys. We do this every single day, and as you guys know, every Monday is the Ledger Nano S giveaway, and if you are ready for a rapid-fire video today, well, that sounds good. Let's hop in. So currently you can see that Bitcoin is down 66.1% Bitcoin dominance, pulled back about 0.3%. Where's it going? Well, obviously you guys could see basically the only thing in green is Tether up 0.61%. In fact, Tether is up to $1.01 today. So definitely in demand after that little bit of a slide that we had. We could look at the gainers today. Molecular future up, don't know what that is. Digitex futures, actually, we were talking about that in the Telegram group last night. Yeah, very minor gains. Outside of that, everything's essentially just being dragged down by Bitcoin. You can see everything leaning towards the negative. Clearly, shorts in the past 4 hours at 54%. And I don't always buy the dip, but when I do, it keeps dipping. And this meme just keeps getting more real every time I look at it. Now, having a look right here, I don't have the greatest news to tell you guys. We are back inside of this falling wedge, okay? It was acting as support. We were hoping that we would be held by the yellow line. We fell through. We couldn't even get held by the resistance. So now the resistance that was support is back to essentially being resistance again. Now, we were actually held down by this sort of center line right here, but it's not really the greatest support to really keep our eyes on. Now, the really bad thing yesterday, we were discussing about the fact that we were actually being held up by the 200 daily on Bitcoin CME futures, and currently we have fallen below it, quite far below it. Now, yes, we have wicked below it in the past, never quite as low as this before. So, we basically have to see by the end of today, are we going to actually be able to wick back up to that $7,950 level? Because if we don't, then essentially we're going to close below the 200 daily. We did do it back here before, but that was sort of when we were struggling initially. This time it was acting as the support. So not the greatest thing. You can see right here, Philb, an analyst that we've spoken about, he's actually made some pretty damn good calls. He's talking about a potential 6.5K Bitcoin as the ultimate floor for bearish sentiment. He also mentioned the 100 weekly moving average as well, which we'll have a look at. But you can see that 6.5K is considered by many commentators to be the lowest possible Bitcoin price. So you can see he did put this chart out right here where he was talking about a potential 6.3K and then bounce out of this, ultimately resuming our bullish trend, but we may still have to come back even farther according to him. You can see, however, I do still kind of think we are in this sort of, you could call it a bull flag or whatever you want to call it, but it does kind of seem like this is the pole and this is the flag. Now, I know this has been going on for quite some time, maybe a little bit longer than we'd like to admit for, Bitcoin, because Bitcoin's price action does tend to be a lot faster. However, you can't deny that this does still look somewhat like a bullish, bull flag. But however, keep in mind, if we do even fall to the bottom of this, we could actually still go down to the 6.7K level, okay? So that is why that is a possibility. Now, in regards to the BitMEX funding, it was interesting because you could see Elixium said the fact that the funding rate is still positive on the indicator during the crash is interesting. Pure speculation. Perhaps BitMEX knows something and is playing with the funding rates to make things look better than they really are. Now, keep in mind, that was just before we had the dump. So that there could be some truth to that potentially. Now, having a look at this 100 weekly, we actually did get supported by it. So Philb was correct in that assumption. The question is, how long will the 100 weekly hold? Now, keep in mind, we are still, even though we just touched it, we are looking for a potential, sorry, I have the color wrong, but they're supposed to be continuations of each other. Essentially just extend these two lines out. And we are looking for a bit of a golden cross right here, potentially, either next week or the following. So could this be the possible bottom? And is Bitcoin looking to actually flip the other way? Well, like Don Alt said, people talking about $3,000 right now are being more unreasonable than people talking about new highs. A run from $200 to 20K is going to take some time to digest. 3K was an overreaction to the downside, but maybe 14,000 was an overreaction to the upside. We're now finding the middle ground. And I actually retweeted this because I thought it was a pretty level-headed tweet. But also, Crypto Michael, now he was talking about similarities, right? Between 2016 and now. He's talking about the fib levels. Now, honestly, take this with a grain of salt. Fractals, do they usually play out? Sometimes they rhyme. I mean, I guess I could see where he's coming from, but like this, basically what we've been saying is this entire market structure is just totally different this time around. So, saying like, oh, past performance doesn't really matter, right? Now, obviously, you could see we've also fallen below both of these key levels as well. And honestly, I was worried about falling into this red zone. We did wick down into it. And we wicked back up, which is good. That means we didn't keep falling because, after we start to go below that 7.2K level, there's really nothing else. That was sort of the, resistance right here. And then you can look at this wick that we had down to the, $6,500 level, but really the VPR just kind of falls off a cliff after that. And the next levels you're looking at is like that sort of well, right here, it's a little bit around there, but yeah, ultimately 5.2 is the level that we're looking at, guys, which, that's a hell of a fall. So, you can hope to get supported around the 6.3, but like, I'm not saying we're going to go down. You guys know I'm not a bear, right? But I'm just being realistic. I mean, if we fall below that level, there's not much else to really catch us on that fall, right? So that being said, guys, let's see, what are we doing right now? Well, all right, a little bit tough. We're kind of in the middle. This is a difficult thing to trade. Essentially, you'd want to try to get above, a previous support. And then, now that hopefully it would act as resistance, you'd want to break through it. But yeah, guys, definitely tough having a look at this chart. So let's talk about it, though. Was it the miners? Because this morning, $20 million of net outflows came from untagged miner wallets. So while that might not seem like a lot, comparatively, it is the second largest single day of net outflows from untagged wallets in 2019. So was this actually due to the miners? Is that why we're seeing this dump? I mean, if we come over here and we have a look at hash rate, okay, it looks all right. It's kind of sort of starting to go sideways. It doesn't look that terrible, right? Well, if we have a look over here, you can essentially see what Bitcoin Jack is saying. Miners will slowly start to capitulate and large transactions will be recorded on chain as capitulation happens. These will be large over-the-counter deals being finalized. So essentially back here in November of 2018, you could see, we did reach finally the top and we started to fall. And he's trying to say that maybe that's what we're doing right now. So I guess if we look at this, I guess it kind of looks like that might have been the peak right here, potentially. But, we will have to keep our eyes on that, obviously, moving forward. But essentially, scrolling down here, I just want to point out one thing super fast, okay? He does say capitulation leading into consolidation with some high volume spikes will be telling large OTC deals. However, Primetime down here, who apparently is a miner, he says, as a miner, I've seen worse. Miners might sell some older stressed hardware, but ultimately we appreciate it's a long game and we will hold production. January to July, I booked substantial profits. I'll use them to tie me over until the downturn. Now, I don't know much about reading this, but I assume that, Primetime BTC is not one of the big miners. I assume he's a smaller miner. He doesn't seem to be bothered by it too much. And also, just kind of finishing on the statement here, he says shorts will close and the start of the next bull run becomes fact, targeting prices well beyond 200K. But guys, I understand on a day like today, talking about a $200,000 Bitcoin seems absolutely crazy. Geez, can we just get back to 10K? I understand, especially if you're new, if you've joined recently, maybe you bought 14, 13, right, all the way down to this level. So that is the situation, but you can see right here, you do have Alex Kruger disagreeing. He says in 2018, the hash rate 10-day moving average dropped 32%. The October peak to December dropped 35%. It's only dropped 4% as of right now. So that doesn't seem like something that we should be worried about, right? He says if miners were to continue increasing capacity at the pace they have had since May without prices moving higher, the market is likely to experience some sort of minor capitulation in the coming months, either before the halving or triggered by the halving. But he says that is ahead of us. At present, there has been increased miner selling, yet the selling activity does not represent the capitulation of any kind, as most miners are profitable given the current prices and difficulty, particularly so on a cash basis. But that does beg the question, then why did we see the dump? And why did we see the dump? Okay, so who's telling the truth here? What's going on? Let me know what you do think about that below. But, you know, having a look over here, we do have futures volume definitely coming in today, 804. Let's see if it's a little bit higher right now. We'll give it a quick refresh, 944. So you are noticing a huge shift. We were all begging for the institutions, right? We were begging for futures and it crashed the price. We were begging for backed and it crashed the price. So maybe you should be careful what you wish for, but the reality is that the times are in fact changing for Bitcoin. You can see the daily volume and look, the open interest, even though it got a little low, did start to turn around and go back up. A lot of days we've been putting in, you know, double digit millions, 15, 14, 12, 11, 12, okay? Got off to a slow start, but this is the change. And honestly, just a simple Alexa search. You could just go to alexa.com. Now, this is the Alexa rank for Binance, okay? And you could see that over the past 90 days, Binance has been slowly trending downwards. Now, it has recently kind of, you know, propped up a little bit and had a bit of a plateau. But if you were to put in something like Bybit, for example, well, that's totally different. 90 days ago, it was at 22,577, and today it is at 12,765, showing me that the interest of, you know, altcoin trading and things of that nature is not as appealing as derivatives trading. The whole nature of the landscape is changing. Now, this creates a problem. This creates what's known as paper Bitcoin, right? This is the same problem that they have with gold, right? It's like if you're betting on somebody, betting on somebody, betting on somebody, betting on somebody, right? But the way that I see it is I've heard a lot of FUD about whether or not this is good or bad, you know, for, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. The way that I see it personally is that if Bitcoin is supposed to be the non-correlated asymmetric asset and absolutely nothing can kill it or stop it, then what are you worried for, right? This is all part of the plan and everything will be just fine with Bitcoin. But what about this doom and gloom, guys? Let's talk about Rainn Wilson and how he is, basically he says donate to the Mona Foundation. I'm going to kind of skip halfway through because he does get a little bit funny, a little bit sarcastic, but check this out. It is a good cause. I did retweet this, but he did get a little tongue in cheek at the end. Check this part out.
And they are now open to accepting Bitcoin donations. So I hope you'll consider giving your worthless cryptocurrency to the Mona Foundation. As you know, Mark Cuban said that cryptocurrency, he'd rather have bananas than Bitcoin. And so please donate your bananas to the Mona Foundation. Thanks so much.
So please donate your bananas to the Mona Foundation. You can obviously see that, you know, these guys like Mark Cuban, they say these things, they resonate. So does that have anything to do with the sentiment? Well, I'm sure it's not helping. But regardless, that is a good cause. Check that out. I will drop that below. Also, just a friendly reminder, super quick, Matty Greenspan, you guys know he left eToro recently. Well, he actually has a new newsletter. Now, as you guys know, I subscribed to his old newsletter. I was a fan of it. This isn't like sponsored or anything. This is actually a totally free newsletter. You guys probably remember Matty, right? We had him on the channel a little bit ago, right? If you haven't checked it out, I will drop that video above. But essentially, if you guys want, it's a really great, I don't know about this newsletter, but his previous newsletter was really good. He talks about, obviously, cryptocurrencies. He also talks about traditional stocks and things of that nature, you know, macro global events. So definitely check this out. It's totally free. And yeah. Just check that out. But also, talking about this Grayscale investment. So essentially, I was going to play this clip for you, but really, I'm not going to play this for you. It's 2 minutes. And basically, all they talk about is essentially just, you know, Grayscale is looking to file, I think it's Form 10 with the SEC to essentially make it more, compliant. And then that should open the doors to more, institutions who otherwise are a little reluctant to get involved. Like, why don't you just open up a Coinbase account? Well, these guys aren't going to do that until there's actual regulatory framework and compliance. So they're saying maybe if they go through with this, potentially that could open the doors for the ETF. That was probably 2 minutes of talking as is. I probably could have just played the video. Anyway, talking about PayPal's CEO, he has admitted to owning Bitcoin. However, he says only Bitcoin. That's the only coin he owns. In a recent interview, he did talk about there being a lot of promise, especially for blockchain. He went on to say that he doesn't necessarily think that, he's interested in it as far as finance goes. He's more intrigued in blockchain as far as identification goes. But he does say that, he hasn't seen a ton of merchants interested in Bitcoin because of its volatility on PayPal, but he still does believe that it's an interesting idea. And yes, he does own Bitcoin, so I thought that was pretty cool. Also, Binance has acquired a well-known Indian crypto exchange, WazirX. So what is going on in India? This could be really good. Okay, they're saying that this is going to give access to a population of over 1 billion, but isn't India having a little bit of problems right now with their, sort of crypto situation? If you're from India, let me know, because I can't tell whether or not they're banning it, they're allowing it. Let me know what is going on with that. But essentially, they say that by November 25th, they should have a Binance fiat gateway that will be accepting Indian rupees. So that should be good for adoption moving forward. We also have the United States Federal Reserve System exploring the development of a central bank digital currency, or a CBDC. You had Reserve Board Chairman Powell set forth that the views on the creation of a CBDC, they're thinking about it. They're not necessarily going ahead with it. He's assessed the situation. They revealed that they are conducting their own small-scale research-focused experiments. But that being said, I wouldn't get too excited about that. And before we go, friendly reminder that Bitcoin is still an amazing hedge against the failing potential global economic crisis that is looming. We've seen hyperinflation. It is censorship resistant. It is not able to be seized by a government unless you hand over your private keys. And look at this. Can you imagine sending $4 billion worth of Bitcoin, 500,000 Bitcoin sent back in 2011 for, I'm sure, not that much. And let's see if a government lets you do that. So, that being said, thank you so much for coming back to my channel. You guys rock. You're the reason that I do this every single day. How's Bitcoin